I'm ready.
All right. Adjusting volume. This is the part where I say, "Hello, Elisabeth de Mariaffi.
Hi, Julie Wilson.
How are you?"
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well because look what I have.
I wrote that book.
Oh, I was hoping you would recognize it. Okay, so first of all, fantastic publisher Invisible.
I'm very pleased. I have
I
so much fun with those guys.
they're really savvy, aren't they?
They're amazingly savvy. They're really, really interesting. They take on really interesting projects. And I couldn't have felt happier in terms of like everything we've done has been like this great, fun discussion. And every time I bring them an idea, they're like, yeah, let's do that. It's been great. It's been good. Good partnership.
And this is, of course, your debut collection of short stories. Um, okay, I want you to talk about the book a little bit because I was so struck. We've known each other in a social capacity now for actually how long? Well, maybe I would say a year.
Yeah, I would have said 2 years, maybe,
Oh,
maybe a year and a half.
okay,
Something.
so we've known each other for 10 years,
Okay.
and I just realized that we've talked so much about writing. And I've known you as a writer, but I've never known you through your writing. And I can't believe I'm going to ask this question. And after I ask this obvious question, I'll ask you if you write long pen or longhand or computer, because I do actually want to know who your influences are.
Oh,
I'm asking you the influence question. I can't believe this.
that's a neat question. When I was writing this book,
Yeah.
um, there were a few people that were super important to me, and a few books that were super important to me. One of them was two books by Mark Jarman,
Mm-hmm.
Dancing Nightly in the Tavern and My White Planet,
Mm-hmm.
both super important. Amy Bender, who's an American writer, two short story collections by her. One of them is called Willful Things, and the other one is called The Girl in the Flammable Skirt.
Mm-hmm.
I actually came to Amy about halfway through writing the book because I was working on a story that involves tiny men. And Pashamala actually said to me, "Have you read Amy Bender? Because she has a tiny men story." And I said, "No, I haven't." And he goes, "Don't read her until you're finished writing your story, but then go back." And actually, so what I did was I read Girl in the Flammable Skirt first, which doesn't have that story in it. But I love her. Leon Brooke, Michael Winter, One Last Good Look especially, but Michael was really important. I was a poet until I took a class with Michael Winter when I was doing my MFA.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally was like that cut and dried.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Let's stop there. What changed for you?
What changed for me?
Yeah. More money in short stories?
I was fairly I was an okay poet, you know what I mean? Like, and I was doing fine. And I was publishing in literary journals and doing all that stuff, and I'd been doing it for quite a while, like for years. By the time I got into the MFA, and which I went into the MFA as a poet, and I did this class, and it made so much more sense to me.
Hmm.
What I was doing made sense to me, and I had a much better feeling of what I was doing and what I wanted to do and how to achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas poetry is much more mysterious to me. Like if a poem works out really well, I'm always a bit surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't quite explain it to you, and that's a little bit true with any kind of writing that works, I think, but much less so with the short stories. And yeah, it it's hard to explain, but it became so clear that this worked for me so much better. Although I do wonder if that's why the short story works for me, and I haven't, I'm working on a novel, but it's a bit of a slow going process, and the super long form seems much less appealing to me, and I think that's probably my background in poetry. The economy of it is much more interesting to me, and I just said this recently, but I find so you'll read a novel, and I've read some very competent novels where at the end of it I kind of think, oh well, Alice Munro could have done that in 30 pages,
Yeah.
because all that feeling and that end point can totally be there after a short story, and I think that's my poetry background right there. That economy, the
Oh,
end. That was my
okay.
diatribe.
Yes. And so brief. I can say that because we've known each other for 23 years. Okay, so Tell people about this collection. Well, first of all, yes, how to get along with women. Is it dating tips?
We could say that.
Okay.
We're going to give it that code. That's okay. No, it's not dating tips. In fact, it couldn't really be further from that. It couldn't be further from self-help. Short stories. They're not linked. It's not like a book of short stories pretending to be a novel. They're just short stories. Um, Although later on, when I sort of looked back at them again, I mean, once you look back at the collection, it sort of become a thing for you more than like the thing you're right into. Um, I sort of really realized that it actually, the collection works very well. How to Get Along with Women, the title is one of the titles of one of the stories. Um, but it made so much sense for me as a title, an overriding title for the whole book, just because I think that the book is really kind of obsessed with power structures in relationships. So all the things that power does. I think for me, I see power structures in all relationships. So romantic relationships, yes, and relationships between men and women, and between friends, and between mothers and children. All those relationships are tinged with power, and power corrupts, of course. It doesn't always, but I became really interested in those questions, how we use power to create things and destroy things, how those structures get away from us. And when it comes to relationships of all kinds, it comes down to who loves most, who loves least, who holds those keys and what are they going to do with them.
Wow.
So to me, that became what the book was about. And I often get is it a self-help book? Are there dating tips? I think the book is as much about women getting along with women as it is about women and men or romantic relationships or anything, right? So
that's interesting. Okay, so Miranda Hill she in talking about her latest or her debut collection of short stories, Sleeping Funny, someone because the voices are so diverse and the content is so diverse, and there's no sort of like obvious thread, someone had suggested that she would start referring to as an anthology, which I thought was brilliant. But in your case, is it the opposite? Were you actually building the stories to sort of build this exploration or theme, or was it just like a coincidence after the fact you realized that's what you've been doing?
I don't think it's conscious. I don't. But I think you'd be hard pressed to take any writer and take what they worked on for 2 years and not find some common obsessions in there because. And I sort of described it this way too. If you look at the book, I think probably any book of short stories that are not linked, certainly this one, I kind of feel later on, nope, that's my dog. Kind of feel later on like it's like perhaps shooting the same scene almost, but just you keep moving the camera, right? Because I just keep wanting to come back to this.
Hi, me too.
I was petting her ear and then I stopped petting her ear. That was a bad choice.
Power struggles.
Yes. You see the power structures here,
Yeah.
George would tell you she has more power than I do. I let that happen somehow. Come here. Yeah, but I think that's what a part of what we're doing as writers, right? Is me anyway, not consciously, but on some level, I'm trying to figure this out, right? Whatever this thing is that's obsessing me, that I can't stop thinking about. I'm going to keep looking at it and keep looking at it. So let's look at it this way. When there's a teenage girl who's coerced her mother's ex-boyfriend into an intimate road trip because she wants him to come back to the family.
Right.
That's one kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And let's look at it over here where there's like an 11-year-old boy whose mother has just abandoned the family. And so he's going to try and figure out what he can do. And the best plan he can come up with is figure out a life-altering magic trick. And this is going to be the thing that wins her back.
Yeah.
So, do you see what I mean by on camera?
Yeah. Is your dog chewing on your leg, by the way? 49th Shelf, the Lit Wish List campaign is identifying writers as readers. So now that we've talked to you as a writer, I wanted to ask you as a reader to suggest a couple of books that people might like to keep in mind during the holiday book buying season, which really should be an annual season, as a non-stop season. Perennial. Thank you. I'm not a gardener. What do I know? And so I'm kind of curious to see, now that we've had this conversation about obsession and quinky dinks,
Yeah.
whether or not we shall discover a few more in your book choices.
Well, you know what? I kind of had a hard time with this. Like,
Mm.
you kind of hit me with this, and I was like, oh, like the like this massive pressure. I'm actually not very good at that.
I'm sorry, by the way.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I did a thing for Chad Pelly where he was like, recommend one book, and I was like, one book, and I gave him like 8, and I'm like the only person in the history of it that ever did that. So anyway, I'm mostly stupid. So, but I did come up with a few things. So here's the last book I read. Same publisher, you will notice
Oh,
that I have.
yes.
Just met Andrew because I read with them in Guelph. Andrew Nathan Hood, The Cloaca, to his second collection. 2 of these stories are also in this year's Journey anthology.
Correct.
And he's also on the Journey shortlist. We don't know if he'll win yet. And I hadn't read any Andrew Hood until I'd met him, and I bought the book from him. And they're really great. Like, they're really great, and they're really surprising. And he kind of gets at something. One of them's called Unburdened Things, which I thought was such a good name. It, almost wouldn't be a bad name for the collection if you like that kind of thing. The Price You Pay for Leaving the House. I don't know. He's come at his own obsession in a way that I find very appealing. So that's the first one I wanted to recommend. The Cloaca, Andrew Hood. The second one is the next book I'm going to read. Speaking of whom, this came for me in the mail. I'm very excited to read it. Miranda Hill, Sleeping Funny. So
I didn't mean to spoil it. It's an anthology. Sorry.
It's a short story anthology by Miranda Hill, who won the Giller Prize a couple of years ago.
Journey.
Not the Giller Prize, the Journey Prize. Because you know what? As I was saying that, I was reading Sarah Stalecki, Scotiabank Giller Prize finalist, on the back of the book. Some of us just should. It's the price you pay for leaving the house.
It is. We can forecast, though. We have high hopes for Miranda.
High hopes for everyone here.
All right.
And the last one that I was going to plug was this one. I wanted to do a book of poetry, and this one is George Murray's Glimpse.
George Murray. Why does this seem so familiar?
Well, I know this guy. I've met him a couple of times.
Is he standing behind you?
He's not standing behind me. He's out with half the children that live in this house right now. Very nicely. He's gone to the farthest away grocery store, such that I can do this in the quiet of only the dog barking. But I like
listen, right? That actually is a pitch for a book, right there. Buy the book, because George is the guy who will go to the long and far away, like Tom Cruise on a horse. Exactly. Yeah. George is the guy, man. If I ever write another book, it's because I had George writing back up for me. But Glimpses, I like to call it, it's sort of a book for the person on your list who doesn't know they like poetry yet. Aphorisms are a really particular form, but it's George calls it gateway poetry. Although it is much more than that as well. But highly recommended. So those are the 3 on my list. I think those are fantastic choices. Did someone just walk through the front door?
No, I was a little worried, but I think the dog's I think she's just attacking a viola case. So it's okay.
You have a viola in your house?
Yes. We have a lot of, Nora plays the viola.
Oh, okay, I was hoping maybe you would give us a song.
Oh, I wish I could give you a song. I can't.
I'm so tempted. I'm so tempted to pause and have you come back.
With the viola.
No.
Only I could play. If only I knew how to hold it and not play.
Okay, well then I think that's a natural ending. Ending on a note of disappointment. Wah, wah. It's only because I know you and have known you for 57 years. Elisabeth de Mariaffi, author of this book, debut collection of short stories. I'm so proud of you. How to Get Along with Women, Invisible. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Don't hang up.